Hello again. Thanks, Jeff and Gary. For those of you who are just joining us, I'm John Craven, founder and CEO of BevNet. In just a minute, we're going to invite up Mike Kirban, who is the CEO and co-founder of Vita Coco. Vita Coco is a company that was founded back in 2004 and was one of several brands that helped create the coconut water category here in the US. And I guess for any of you who are just starting out now in some emerging category, coconut water back then was kind of like, I don't know, kefir, kombucha, or any other emerging, category where it kind of had a polarizing flavor. Now, fast forward 15 years later, and Vita Coco is the leader in what is now a $2.5 billion global coconut water category. Vita Coco has evolved into a large and complex organization that includes 400 employees across 6 global offices. They sell their products in 30 countries, and they manufacture in 8 different countries. As an industry, we put a lot of emphasis on companies that are trying to drive top-line growth and to achieve that big exit. And what Vita Coco has done, and Mike's going to talk about this with us, is something that's a little different. It's remained independent, and it's also pretty unique in that the 2 original founders, Mike and his co-founder, Ira, are still with the company and have basically been running it the entire time. So we're going to talk to Mike about that, and I'd like to invite him up now. So Mike, come on up. Thanks. So I got to ask, because this is like always a rumor, you guys are selling the company for billions of cash like tomorrow, right?
Yeah. Good first question.
Yeah.
No, actually, I got a call a couple weeks ago from a journalist. You actually saw this too, I think, who got an email from an inside source that said we had sold the business for $2 billion. And I asked the journalist if they could get me information on the wire transfer so I could track it when it comes in and make sure I actually receive it. But they didn't have that type of inside information.
Bummer.
Yeah, no. No, honestly, these rumors happen all the time. We're a decent-sized company playing in a space where there's a lot of M&A, and we have conversations with strategics, regional ones, multinational ones, and about all different topics, all different things, all different projects, all different opportunities. These rumors start. They're not helpful in any way. I love running the business. I've been running it for 15 years. Every day is super exciting. We're in a place now where I have a clear goal to double the size of the business in the next 3 years. I think we could double the size of the business in 3 years easier than it was for us to go from 0 to where we are today over the last 15 years. And we have the size and scale to leverage, and I think it could be something incredible, and that's what I'm excited about.
So definitely want to talk about that, but also want to go back to the beginning, which, when you started out, there was this sort of all of a sudden, pop-up of a bunch of coconut water companies, Zico and O&E. Yeah. And, you guys had pretty fierce competition out of the gate, and then, coconut water, again, to put it into, today's terms, it would, like there was a new one every week, right? How did that competition kind of help you, get to where you are?
Yeah. It's been a big part of our success, I think. And I miss those guys. Back in the day, it was a real street fight, and it was fun, and it was invigorating, and it was exciting, and I think it really helped shape the culture that our business has today. And it also did something really special, which I think was to legitimize a category that was really strange. I would go into a distributor's office and try to explain to them that I was taking this liquid from the tropics that everybody in the tropics drinks. You've never drank it, but everybody in the tropics drinks. And we're putting it in a cardboard box with this little silver pull tab. Those of you who don't remember, that's what Vita Coco was. It was just the pull tab. Right. And we're going to sell it to mainstream Americans. And I think they would have thought, some of them did think I was crazy, but they all would have thought I was crazy if I didn't have Rampolla in there the week before pitching Zico, Rodrigo the week after pitching O&E. I think together we really legitimized a category that I don't think we would have been able to, I would not have been able to do on my own.
So you kind of, and I think what's unique about coconut water is that many of you were vertically integrated, and that's something that, has still been a key part of what Vita Coco is. It's also created a coconut oil business for you, and now you're entering coconut milk. You know, do you still think of Vita Coco as a coconut water company? Is it a coconut company? Like, what exactly is it?
Yeah, we are a beverage company, right? We started out as a beverage company. We'll always be a beverage company. But you know, we have this complex, sophisticated supply chain today where we're cracking over 2 million coconuts every day. And that gives us the opportunity to take this amazing raw material and be somewhat opportunistic. And I think coconut oil is the best example of that, where we saw an opportunity, we saw a category that was growing, and we put our brand on it and created what is today a sizable coconut oil business. The same thing with the coconut milk. You know, the dairy industry is really the next carbonated soft drinks industry. I think there's going to be this, it's already seeing massive headwinds, but I think it's going to start to snowball. And coconut milk is an incredible dairy alternative, and Vita Coco is a great brand to play in that space. But when we look at the future and how this business continues to evolve and how we do double the business in 3 years, it's going to be a combination of a couple things. It's one, coconut water will continue to grow. It's continuing to grow. You know, our business is growing at 17% this year. So for a business of this size, it's decent growth. And it's going to, a lot of the growth is going to come through innovation. You know, looking at different occasions. I mean, meal accompaniment. Yeah, people drink a coconut water with their sandwich, but a lot of people drinking sparkling with their sandwich, and hence our new sparkling line, which is actually doing really well. It's looking at, you know, channels, and the PET in convenience stores and small format is a big opportunity for us. But beyond that, you know, we've created what is probably today the largest independently owned better-for-you beverage company in the country, if not in the world. And I want to leverage that to create something much bigger. I think, you know, we have the size and the scale to use Vita Coco as an anchor brand to start to do more. We're looking at, you know, through a combination of M&A, we're looking at some potential acquisitions, something that we're actually pretty close on right now, totally outside of coconut water, and through innovation, building a much broader platform of better-for-you beverages.
So one of the things that you have talked about frequently is that, you know, you're always looking at margin and the balance sheet and profit, sort of standard, you know, business words, right? You know, again, we talk a lot about companies that are building top-line growth and, you know, trying to get a big exit. I mean, can you talk a little bit more about the approach that you've taken?
Yeah, I think it's been important for me. When I got into this business, I knew nothing about beverages. I knew nothing about consumer goods. So I was starting a business, right? First and foremost, it was a business. And you know, I've always been of the philosophy of build it well and not necessarily just to sell, right? Which I thought about at every turn, every single stage of building this business. Whether I was, you know, opening up a new dry cleaner or a deli or a coconut water company, it was a business to me. And I think that's helped me a lot, and it's given me the ability to really have full optionality in what I do long term. Whereas you see time and time again, we see it right now in this industry, so much money pouring into this industry, and brands just putting everything against the top line, which has worked in the past in some small, you know, examples, large examples, but a few examples by vitamin water. Brands that have done that and been really successful and had the perfect exit at the perfect time for the perfect price. But that doesn't always happen. There are plenty of examples of people raising a ton of money, 20, 50, hundreds of millions of dollars at great valuations. And then the time comes and the right buyer is not there at the exact time and they need to go raise money again and they can't raise money and they can't build the business necessarily always that way. And I think it's challenging and I think it's dangerous.
So I guess looking back, I mean, do you have any advice for entrepreneurs that are just trying to navigate this for the first time?
Yeah, I would say either go for the option of raise as much money as you can and build top line as fast as you can and hope you get lucky, which you might. And if you do, it's amazing, good for you. But I prefer the option of build a real business, create optionality for yourself, so that whether the option at the end of the day is, you know, holding the business for much longer, you know, selling based on a multiple of EBITDA, you know, selling to a strategic or even an IPO, you create those options that I think at least for me, has always helped me sleep at night.
All about getting a good night's sleep, right?
That's all it's about, man.
So I guess as you're looking to double the business and presumably, and I guess you already are expanding into new product lines. How do you evaluate a new product line now that you kind of have the scale that you have? Does it have to make money right away? Like, what's the runway for it?
Yeah, it shouldn't make money right away. I mean, I think about the early days. Actually, your previous question, I had this policy, these guardrails of never burning more than 10% of my revenue in a year, right? That was kind of like my guardrail. Anything more than that felt dangerous to me. With new innovation, we could go a little bit further because we have the anchor brand and the anchor business to support it. But margin is important, and a path to a good margin is important. You might not have it day one. When we started Vita Coco, our gross margins were obviously not where they are today. But we built them over time, and we had a path to build our margins and to improve our margins, which creates a good business. So I think any innovation that we look at, it doesn't have to necessarily be margin accretive to the total business, but you have to be able to build a strong margin for it to make sense as an innovation.
So let's shift a little bit to just the role of CEO from the scrappy early days, which I remember meeting you at a trade show for the first time, and it was definitely a scrappy looking sort of thing compared to what
I'm
you
not
guys...
still scrappy looking?
I mean, I don't know, man. Every time I go to Expo West, I'm sitting in the Vita Coco booth with a beach in it. So, yeah, it doesn't feel too scrappy to me. But, and actually, I remember when I was talking to you at Expo West, a professional athlete came up to thank you for making your product, which I thought was pretty wild, too. But,
awesome.
yeah, it doesn't feel too scrappy. But, you guys have, of course, had bumps in the road. I'll bring up one of your favorite things from last year, Squidgate, for example. How do you deal with that sort of stuff, both, Vita Coco and just you personally as a CEO?
Yeah. I take some of these things super personally. That was probably the one I took the most personally of anything that's ever happened. I mean, we deal with, all sorts of issues that any entrepreneur, any beverage company, any consumer goods company deals with, right? Where to invest your resources, where to do this, and then you have issues here and you have issues there. But this situation, Squidgate, I don't know how many of you remember what we like to call Squidgate, jokingly, was a woman in upstate New York left her Vita Coco open apparently, and it spoiled and it grew mold, and she claimed she found a squid in her Vita Coco, and and she was quite competent as it relates to social media, and she pushed this thing out there so far. We're pretty sure it was seen by about 75 million people globally, and it was a pretty ugly picture of what did look like a squid, but it was mold, and that to me was really challenging because it felt like an attack on our quality, right? And quality is for us the most important thing. We put so much time and so much energy and so many resources into the quality of our product and managing quality that when something like this happens, it's almost like a personal attack to me.
I guess, so I mean, for something like that, do you just have to compartmentalize it, rebound, and move on, or?
Cocktail helps. And then after that, yeah, you have to just move on. We had to joke about it because for us it was the only way to deal with it, and it was kind of so far-fetched that it was, I think worth joking about to an extent. And we made an announcement that Vita Coco was now squid-free. It wasn't our new calamari flavor and stuff like that.
Yum. Still makes me feel ill thinking about that. So another question that kind of comes up as we talk about this is, you were talking about raise a lot of money and, hope you get lucky. How do you manage your investors, which, you had investment from Verlinvest, who's still an investor.
Yep.
How do you manage your investors and their expectations when you're on one path and then, the rest of the world's on the other path of raise a ton of money and,
Yeah. No, I think this actually takes me to, a discussion I have often with entrepreneurs is find the right investors. I was very fortunate early on. When VerilInvest came in, we were doing less than $1 million in revenue. So we were tiny, which was a rare thing, right? And VerilInvest, being a family office, being a patient family office that has been in Stella Artois since the 1300s, they don't have a 4-year horizon where they have to sell the business in 4 years or 5 years. They can be patient. We can work together. We can, create something special. Now, they always wanted to give me more money, and they wanted me to spend more money. I always, was balancing that with I want to retain as much of the company as I can as the company continues to grow. So it was always a balance and always a challenge, but I had the right investor to have that dynamic with, where I don't think all investors will give you the freedom to do that.
Well, I mean, is there a specific, I don't know, lesson, rule, whatever you would call it? Like, how do you find that?
How do you find that investor? I think. Depends on what you're looking for. I think a family office is great, which was this. In our case, is what VerilInvest is. Private equity is great too, but you have to have the right investor, I think, for your goals and your objectives. And a lot of the private equity money out there is about what we talked about earlier. It's throw as much against the top line as possible, and to them. And I know there's probably a lot of private equity guys out here, some of which I'm friends with. But at the end of the day, to them, they're going to do 10, 15, 20 of these deals. Not all of them are going to make it. The 1 or 2 or 3 that make it, if they make it big, makes the whole fund. And I think that is their objective, to push as hard as possible and get as many big ones as possible. And I think it's the entrepreneur's job to push back. You have to push back on your team. You have to push back on your investors. You have to push back on your retailers. That's part of building a business, right?
So do you still feel like an entrepreneur 15 years later with 400 employees?
Yeah.
How do you maintain that?
I think it's partly who I am. I'm always creating. I'm always looking for new things. I'm always moving forward. I hate getting stuck in meetings, and I bounce from meeting to meeting. And I think, for me, we've tried to retain a culture that is not very political in any way, that is super, competitive yet community at the same time. And I think our culture and the culture that I like to be a part of is, I think, part of what makes it feel like, still, to me, an entrepreneurial startup. It goes like that. It's been 14 years, but it feels, like year 3.
We're just a little older, I guess.
I know.
I guess as far as the team, though, I mean, do you have a lot of the people that have been there since the beginning? Can you talk about that a little bit? Yeah,
I mean, our leadership team, so my direct reports, almost all of them have been there since 2009, 2010. So it's really, people say this all the time, but this is really family. I mean, coming to work for me is like going to see my brothers and my sisters, and it's really fun, and it's what makes it enjoyable for me, and I love it. But I think team is everything, and building a good team and building a good organization. I follow a few very simple things, which is, the biggest one for me is we have a very clear no asshole policy in our company. There are so many assholes out there, and and it's really important for me. If no matter how good somebody is, how much revenue they generate, how much they bring to the table, if my other rest of the team and my coworkers don't feel comfortable coming to work and don't like being around this person, and I don't like working with this person, they're gone, and they're gone quickly. And I think that it creates a nice environment where everybody kind of gets along. Mm-hmm. That's good.
So we're getting questions from the audience here too, and certainly feel free to send them up. The info is on the bottom of your agenda. People want to know about just what the future holds for Vita Coco. Where do you take this? You talked about goal being to double it. I guess then what? Is it time for an exit? Is it time for doubling it again? What's your vision at this point?
Right now, it's doubling the business and continuing to create optionality for the exit discussion, right? I think for us, we have all the options in the world. We had, a regional strategic in Red Bull China come in a few years ago and buy out certain shareholders and give people liquidity opportunities. That continues to always be an opportunity. The large strategic multinational is always an opportunity. An IPO is an opportunity for us. I mean, we're a business that has a great balance sheet, is profitable, and I think, maybe not strictly as a coconut water company, but as we start to brand and we become the biggest, which I believe we can, the biggest better-for-you beverage company in the world, an IPO is obviously an option too, right? So just, it's about building optionality.
So,
and having fun while I'm doing it.
Well, fun is key, of course. As you're kind of building out this platform of a better-for-you beverage company, can you share with us any sort of I don't know, things that pique your interest right now, just in the space, if we're talking about things outside of coconut water?
Yeah, I mean, you look at what's happening in ready-to-drink coffee. I think there's a lot of interesting things happening there. I think that category is really small in the US, relevant to what it is in other markets around the world. I mean, Japan is ridiculous in terms of ready-to-drink coffee, and I think there's a real opportunity there. I think sparkling is obviously continuing to grow. I don't think it's going to go anywhere, but it's competitive. And I think energy. Energy, I think, is going to change a lot. You look at the energy drink category today, and energy drinks are the new carbonated soft drinks, right? And I think consumers are starting to realize that, yet they need the functionality, which is why there's such an opportunity in ready-to-drink coffee. You look at energy teas, and you look at other sources of natural and better-for-you energy drinks. I think there's a real opportunity there, too.
So the product development process right now inside of Vita Coco is, I assume that's something you have your hands in. You guys have tried a bunch of things, I guess, that haven't worked too, and I guess kids products, and I think there was a frozen product maybe at one point that was gonna come out. I don't know, but anyway, can you talk about just kind of what that process is like and what you've learned from some of the things that haven't gone quite right?
Yeah, I think as we used to look at innovation from a coconut standpoint, we used to look at flavor extensions, right? So in the early days, we had pure coconut water. Then we started to build out this rainbow effect, this billboard effect on the shelf through flavor innovation. Over the last few years, we looked more at occasions. So Vita Coco milk as a dairy, as a breakfast occasion, the sparkling as a lunch and meal accompaniment occasion. And also, we look at packaging innovation, and that's where the PET comes into play in small format. So I think you're going to see coconut continue to grow. Today, 25% of American households are drinking beverages that have coconut as an ingredient. Mm-hmm. So coconut is mainstream. And I think as you see the coconut water business continue to grow, a lot of that growth is going to come through innovation. It's going to come through, giving coconut products to consumers and beverages in different formats. I mean, look at Body Armor, look at Bai. Body Armor and Vitamin Water have, coconut base, as an ingredient. Bai, their top 3 selling SKUs, I think, are coconut and coconut water based. So there's a real opportunity to continue to grow this category through innovation.
How big do you think it can get?
The coconut water category globally today, packaged coconut water, is already $2.5 billion. That's coming from almost nothing 15 years ago. The US packaged coconut water business is $1.5 billion. So it's big. I think globally this can be a $6 billion category in 5 years. And it's not going to be the pure coconut water in a Tetra Pak as we know it today. It's going to be a combination of different things through innovation that continue to grow this category.
So more coconut water and other products and stuff like that.
Yep.
I guess let's talk a little bit about this coconut oil for a second, since that's sort of a, I don't know, I kind of want to say what's the deal with coconut oil here, so.
It's used in everything. I mean, everybody I talk to uses it for something, whether it's cooking, moisturizing. It's a pretty versatile product. A lot of people have a jar in the bedroom and a jar in the kitchen. So it's really interesting. And I think as consumers are looking, both from a cooking standpoint for better oils, it plays in really well. And I think everything that consumers are doing now are more simple. This is it's a product it's one ingredient. It's just squeezed out of a coconut. And when you're looking at moisturizers and you're looking at hair products and you're looking at skin products, they're filled with all sorts of crap today. And I think that's one of the reasons that coconut oil has grown so fast over the last few years.
So before we run out of time here, another question that we got was about just, Vita Coco working with other brands. I guess aside from you have presumably money and experience, what are you looking for when you work with brands? I mean, you guys have like a distribution footprint too, right?
Yeah. So we've got a really interesting, sizable scale business, like I said. But and we have great strengths in back office and finance and operations. But our biggest strength is in retail execution. So we have a hybrid route to market, which includes DSD and direct and broadliners, combined with a pretty substantial field execution team. And I think that is our strength. And I think to incubate young brands these days, you need that field execution. More than route to market, more than distribution, you need the execution at retail to stand out. You get lost in the shelf. I think that's our biggest strength.
And I guess how many brands are you looking to work with? And we can let you out the back door when we're just talking here.
There's no specific number. We're looking at a bunch of different things right now. I think we're going to probably have our first deal done in the next few weeks, I'm hoping. And I think it's going to be, it'll be super interesting.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well, hey, Mike, really appreciate you joining us here. And thanks for having us.
Awesome. Thanks. Thanks.